All right, now we've been able to at least save our user data to our database, but there's a problem. So let me show you the problem. There's a problem because the data we are saving to the database, the password is saved raw just as it is. So if you look here where we have this password, you see Zeno123, that's the password. Now you don't want to do this. As much as possible, you want to make sure that the password in your database is encrypted. If, for example, an unauthorized person has access to your database, you want to make it at least a little bit difficult for them to, be able to access your user's account just with that information. So what we need to do at this point is we're going to encrypt this password before saving it in the database. So I'm going to minimize this guy and let's get back to work. So to do that, I come to my Visual Studio Code and there's a package I'm going to install. So I'm in the terminal where I can just write npm install, and the name of that package is bcrypt.js. It helps us encrypt our password before we save it. So it's b and then crypt.js. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter on this one and then it will just install. Alright, so it has installed, and just make sure you confirm that it actually installed. So if you come to this our package.json, you see that we now have bcrypt.js there. Great, so we can continue. So the first thing is I'm going to import it inside of my user controller. Let's do that. I'll say const, I'll give it a variable name of bcrypt, and that's going to be equal to, we're going to require, and it's bcrypt.js. Yeah. All right, so now we're going to come inside of this our register user function. This is where we create a new user. So you want to hash the password before you create that new user. So I'll just come above here and I'll just see maybe something like encrypt password before saving to db. Okay, now how are we going to encrypt the password? So there are two processes you need to encrypt the password. The first thing is you need to create what is known as a salt, and it's just something that helps you encrypt your password using bcrypt.js. So here I'll say const and salt. That's going to be equal to await, and we're going to generate a salt with bcrypt.js. And to keep things simple, I say salt is something that helps you encrypt your password. So we're going to say bcrypt dot gen salt, and then you're now going to give this an argument of how long you want the salt to be. So here I'll just say 10. I'll come down here. Now that we've created the salt, which is the piece of material that helps us encrypt our password, we can now go ahead and hash the password. So I'll put it inside a variable. I'll say const and I'll just say hashed password, and that's going to be equal to, now we're going to await bcrypt dot hash, and then we're just going to open our parenthesis. Now this is going to take two arguments. The first is what do you want to hash? So I want to hash my password, which is this guy that's coming from our body. So I'll come back here and say, look, I want to hash the password. Then I'll add a comma. Then it will require us to slot in the salt we just created. So salt, that's what we want to use to hash the password. All right, great. Now that we've created this hashed password variable, we can now come here to okay, yeah. So the next piece of function is where we create the new user. So instead of just saving the password in the database, I'll say, look, in place of this password, I want you to point to the hashed password. So it needs to be hashed password. Yeah, great. That's all we need to do. Now go ahead and save and let's test it out. So I will come to my Insomnia and I'll create a new user. So this user, we called it user@gmail.com. Now I'll come and say user1@gmail.com, and maybe I'll just change the name so that I mean it's different, or I think I'll just stick with just changing the email. So we have user and then user1. Go ahead and click on send and let's see what happens. Voila. Oh, user validation failed. Password must not be more than 23 characters. Okay. There's something we need to change in our model, because when the password was hashed, it became more than 23 characters. So you know what? I'm just going to head back to the model. So you see, let's come here to password. Yeah, so you see here, we set the max length of the password to 23 characters. So that's why we're getting that error. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to comment this out. If I want to do anything about the max length of the password, I'll just do it on the front end. So just comment this out and let's come back here to test. Make sure that your server has restarted. As you can see, mine has. And then I'll come here and let's do this again one more time. Send. Okay. So I'll just click here, send. And this time we shouldn't get any max length error. Great. So we've been able to create the user, and as you can see, we have user1@gmail.com. Now let me head back to my DB, and on my DB I'll just check what that data looks like. So if you refresh, just scroll up a bit, you'll see this refresh button here. If you refresh your DB, so the DB has refreshed and we have two pieces of objects in this database. So you see the first one is user, so we need the second one, which is the second one we added, that is user1. Now look at the password field. You notice that it's now this long string of character. Yeah, that's exactly what we want. Now we've been able to hash the password, but technically there may still be an issue, and I'll just point out the issue to you. For me to point out the issue, I'll need to go to the front end of our application. What we just did is, when we want to register, we hash the password, but there are several other operations that require us to manipulate the password, and I'll show you. The first is the profile. So let me open this up and go to my profile, and if you click on edit profile and scroll down, you see that we have a functionality here to change the password. So it means that whenever you're changing the password from this portion here of our front end, you're also going to need to hash the password. That's one. Number two, if I log out, you'll notice that we have a forgot password option. So here you click on forgot password, the user is sent like a string of link that they can click on and then reset their password. Whenever they reset their password, we're going to modify the password in the database, or we're going to save that new password in the database. You would also be required to hash the password. So what that means is that if you hash your password directly from your controller, which is what we did here, yeah, you're going to need to do it in at least 3 places from what we've seen so far. You do it in the register, you do it in the change password functionality, and you would also do it in the reset password functionality. So the question is there a better way we can do this, such that we can only write this function or this code once and then just have it, fire off whenever these 3 actions are called? Yes, and in the next video we're going to see how we can implement that. All right, see you there.